up, guys? It's Matresa and Nick, and we are back for Strength 101. Today we have our Q&As. So we got a bunch of questions on our Instagram, so we're excited to answer those today.
And while you're getting settled in to listen to this, please hit that subscribe button, follow button, whatever button is there, so that we know that we're giving you guys some value. That's good feedback for us. And also, you'll get notified when we put out new podcasts, and you don't want to miss great information. So let's get into it.
Bada bing, bada boom. All right, our first question is from Angie Turner 781. Shout out Angie. Her question is macros, cutting versus building. Is it possible to do both simultaneously? So first of all, first part of that is macros. So macros are three sources of energy that we take in, which is going to be our proteins, fats, and carbs. So I would say if you're tracking on macros, that's going to be a little bit more strict. Otherwise, there's calories in, calories out, which I know we've talked about a little bit in some of our past podcasts, but what that's going to look like is just simply tracking your calories, and that's going to be not as strict, focusing more maybe just on protein and calories, not focusing on the macros. So for cutting and building, though, so if you want to know what cutting is going to be where you're taking in less calories and you're trying to shed off some body fat. As building or bulking, you might also hear, is going to be taking in more calories than you're burning. So we're trying to focus on muscle building, and you will be gaining a little bit of body fat in that as well. Can you do both simultaneously? If you want to see like good results and like whatever your goals are going to be, I would say no. I think you have to focus on just one or the other to get strong results from either one of them. It's hard to lose body fat while you're trying to bulk at the same time. So I would say that whatever your goals are, it'd be better to probably just focus on one or the other.
Yeah, certainly. I think if you're new to this terminology, it can be very confusing. If somebody says that they're tracking macros and somebody says they're counting calories, those are largely the same thing, just different levels of strictness, right? We're huge advocates for counting calories and also tracking protein. So we ask them to track one macronutrient, but not all of them. And the reason that I'm such a big advocate for that is because I don't want to give more reasons for somebody to fail. There's so much strictness when you tell yourself you have to eat a certain amount of grams of carbohydrates and a certain amount of grams of fat, that it can feel really restrictive when you're trying to do something that's already difficult to do.
For sure.
And so if we can get people just to do calories and protein, then they're going to get the same results without feeling like they have no freedom in their life. And then, when you're looking at the cutting versus building side of that, largely your protein intake is going to be the same in either one of those scenarios. There's not a huge benefit to getting more protein in. Like if I get in 200 to 225 grams of protein a day, I'm not going to grow muscle faster or recover better because I got in 300 grams. My body just needs what it needs, and it's actually going to break down that extra protein and just basically turn it into a carbohydrate. So it's unnecessary. And so when you're looking at cutting versus building, the protein's going to be about the same. And then all we do is we start to taper down how much carbs and fat we eat. And that's a lot easier, and you have a lot more freedom if you're only focused on the total calories and the protein. There are obviously people who need to hone in on specific fats, excuse me, and specific carbohydrates, like bodybuilders, people who are really going for a specific look to their body. But for the general person, I don't think it's necessary.
For sure not. Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool.
Oh, one thing I would like to mention on that too is if you are bulking, and I've tried to bulk so often in my life, and for me personally, when I'm bulking, I have to hit something like 4,500, 5,000 calories a day if I really want to put on weight. And so when you're deciding how much carbs and fat to eat, I do think it's beneficial if you're trying to bulk to eat more fats, because they're just a higher density of calories. And so then you don't have to eat as much volume of food through the day. If you were trying to eat a low-fat diet and you're trying to get in 5,000 calories, you're just going to be eating like 7 large meals a day, and it's just going to be so overwhelming you can't do it. And on the flip side, if you're cutting, then we always try to teach people to volumize their food. And maybe they are going to eat a little bit lower fat, not zero fat, but a little bit lower fat, so that they get more quantity of food throughout their day.
And if you're wondering what like volume eating is, that's going to be like your lettuce, cauliflower rice, things that are low in calorie, but you can have a bunch of that's still going to stay low calorie. So it seems like it's a lot of how much can you chew, right? You get a lot more bites out of volumized eating that way.
Yeah. So I think to summarize, like if you're worried about like that you're going to miss out on results because you're not counting your macros, I don't think that's right for most people. I think if you focus on calories and protein, you're going to get all the results you want.
For sure. And decide what's better for you, if you'd rather bulk or build or cut.
So next question comes from Ab Bauman in through the Instagram. Is training at percentages only for barbell work? How do I maximize gains in class work? And this is a member of our gym, and we do strength training in class format, so it is pretty specific to what we're doing. And I would say, and this is a two-part question. I'll read the second part of the question later, but is training at percentages only for barbell work? It's not only for barbell work. There's definitely, you could train at percentages. And what she means by this is there's a lot of people that will go into the gym and they'll say, I'm going to hit 5 reps today at 80% of my 1 rep max. And that's really a really good way for them to make sure that they are training at the proper intensity every time that they go in, whether they're not feeling good or they're feeling amazing, so that they don't overtrain when they're feeling amazing and so that they don't undertrain when they're just not feeling it that day. So it keeps them on a pretty strict schedule. I would say that unless you're training for something that's really truly a skill in strength and you're probably going to be competitive with it, I think that it's, once again, unnecessary strictness on your training. And so, yes, you could do that with dumbbell training. You could do it with kettlebell training. You can definitely do it with barbell training. But unless you have a specific goal where you're actually going to compete in a squat or a deadlift or a bench, I just don't think it's necessary. And the second part of that question is, well, if you're not tracking percentages and figuring out what weights to use, how do you maximize your gains in class work? And that's back to our standard framework of pushing close to failure. And so, Matresa, what do we always tell people for strength and for pump work on how you push to failure?
Yeah, so thinking about like if you had 2 reps left in the tank is always what I like to think of. Like, could you have gotten like 2 more? And like if not, then then you're right at that threshold to.
And that's for strength work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're below 8 reps, you're doing some of those bigger, heavier exercises like your squats, your bench, your deadlift, and you are pushing some heavy weight. We teach our classes to go for a challenging weight where when they're finishing, let's say you're going for 8 reps, you should feel like maybe you could have gotten 9 or 10, but it would have been a little bit sloppy, it would have been a little bit dicey, but 8 was really strong, and that's a good place where you're gonna get your strength work in, you're gonna send the signal to the muscle that it needs to grow and get stronger. Now, if you're doing some higher rep work, so pump work, let's say you're doing bicep curls or lateral raises up in the ranges of like 10 and above, so like 15 reps, then you want to push those as close to failure as possible. There's very little injury risk, and those are smaller muscles, so you have to fatigue them fully. And so you should only stop on those exercises when either the burn is so much that you just have to stop, or you fail the rep.
Right.
There is a second part to this question. She actually sent in 2 questions. And so the next one is, should I push to, and this is perfect, should I push to failure in every single workout, or should I leave room for recovery for later in the cycle? Now, I think the base answer to this is you can't forget that you can only train as hard as you can recover. And so really how hard you train, whether that's in a single workout over the course of weeks and months, really depends on how hard you can recover. And I would say that's how hard you can recover both physically and mentally from the workouts. And so if we were to go into the gym and push a workout to failure and it's going to compromise our workouts for the rest of the week, then I would say no, you shouldn't push to failure in every single workout. However, there are some people, and I'm thinking of Coach DJ at our gym, who legitimately pushes himself close to puking and failing every single day. And he shows up the next day with a smile on his face, full mobility, just amazing. And that's because he's eating properly, he's getting a bunch of sleep, and he's young. And so that makes a big difference. And so it really has to be up to the individual, and you have to almost test this out on yourself and figure out what's best for you. I know that when we train a 4-week training program, if I were to start week 1 and we were doing lunges, if I hadn't done those in 8 weeks, we hadn't done lunges for 8 weeks, and I was like, oh, I know that last time we did lunges, I put 70 pounds in each hand for a set of 4 on each side. I'm not going to reach for that on week 1 of that program because 1, I'm probably detrained a little bit, and I do want to leave a little bit in the tank to be able to ramp up over the course of that program. Partially because if I were to put that weight on my body, it's going to crush me and my joints are going to start hurting. And I want to be able to not just do 1 workout that week, but do 3 workouts to maximum effectiveness.
For sure. By week 4, then, I bet you can do more than the 70s at that point, right?
Yeah. And really, you need to be honest with where you are at in life on this stuff. Because if you're 40 years old and you have a stressful job and a stressful home life, your sleep is compromised, and you don't get enough protein in, then you should not be pushing to failure in every workout because the recovery is just going to be so slow. So it might be better during that time of your life to go in and go 80% and feel good the next day. One of our favorite members, Warren, who's been at the gym ever since we started, my favorite thing that he says is I'll be like, hey, how heavy are you going to bench today? I'll ask him. And he'll just kind of look at me and he'll say, I just want to show up tomorrow. And that's his big thing because he knows that consistency is key. So if he pushes it to failure at the age of 50, he's going to be 56 soon. We have the same birthday, fun fact. But he'll be 56 soon. And if he trains to failure, then he's going to be hampered for the rest of the week. But if you're 22 years old, that might not be the case.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that goes all the way back to you can only train as hard as you can recover. Beautiful. Thanks, Abby.
Oh, is this me? Sorry.
Okay. No, I'm trying. Yes, sorry.
Okay, so Ross also wrote in. So Ross is also a member at the gym, and he asked how to combat joint pain during training. Do you push through or do you change the exercise? And he's specifically referring to tendonitis and maybe some bursitis. Any type of injury, when somebody comes to me and says this is hurting, especially if it's related to a joint, let's say like your elbow hurts or your shoulder hurts or your knees hurt, and that's usually where most people feel some pain. My first question is always, okay, is this an issue with the joint or is this being caused by tight tissue? And I would say most of the time it's a tight tissue issue.
Good rhyme.
And mostly because like if you just are doing regular exercises and there was no traumatic occurrence, like you weren't bench pressing and you felt a pop in your shoulder, or you heard some type of tearing sound, or you just had some type of like traumatic fall and then you're not really sure what happened, then likely the joint is not the problem. And the only way you can tell that is by going in and seeing a professional for that, where you can get imaged and they can tell you whether there's actual damage to the ligaments around the joint.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're probably dealing with just some tissue tightness, maybe some tissue irritation from overtraining. And in that case, you should not push through that because your body is already telling you that that tissue is angry because it's overstressed. And if you continue to push it, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get more irritated. Yeah. What do you tell people? If you have pain yourself, like, what do you do about it? Because you're largely uninjured. I haven't seen you be hampered by many injuries.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I would say, though, with that, even if it was myself or someone, first thing I'd do is, question it. And then most likely I would always change the exercise and give them a nice modification. Just then at least they're still moving their body, but they're not hampering on that spot that's bugging them.
Yeah.
And I would do the same thing for myself as well.
Yeah. And when we talk about tissue either being irritated or even if it's damaged, like there's a minor tear, then the best thing to do is to get blood flow to that area because that's what's going to heal it. And so, you'll hear people say motion is lotion, blood flow is healing. And you really want to think about it that way. There's going to be a threshold where if you have some injured tissue, if you go above that threshold, it's going to fight back on you, but there may be a threshold you can get under where you can get movement to it without gaining irritation, and that's really where you want to sit. What I'll often tell people is if you can do this movement and the pain is no greater than a 3 or a 4, and you don't notice that the irritation is getting worse by doing it, then you should continue to move and it's going to heal over time. However, if it does get more irritated or more inflamed afterwards, then you may have to go even lighter on that exercise and check your ego, and that's usually the best way to do it, or you can change the exercise. There's plenty of examples where, let's say somebody is having shoulder irritation, and we're doing some type of overhead press, and the overhead press really is irritating above that 3 to 4, and it doesn't seem to be getting better, then you can take them down to an incline bench press. And so they're still getting similar muscle groups, but in a different angle, and it may be just enough for you to get out of that pain zone and still be able to get blood flow to the area.
Sure. I would say with that, like what he's explaining, don't be afraid of wherever you are. If you come to our gym or any gym, don't be afraid to ask for modifications on that because it's better to ask instead of just pushing through and then something worse happening.
Yeah, totally. And if you have injured tissue and you just rest it, it might feel better, But then right when you go back into movement, it's probably going to still be irritated. And so you really have to convince the body that it's okay and that it's safe to go to these positions. And then slowly over time, convince the body that it's okay to go up in load. So you kind of have to baby it a little bit. But if you can do that, you can get out of injuries very quickly. It's the people that are a little bit hard-headed. And as soon as they feel a little bit better, they go and they jump up 40 pounds to what they were doing before, that all of a sudden end up re-injured again.
Yes, if not worse.
One thing I would say specifically about tendinitis is inflammation of the tendon, and that can be from overuse. When a tendon is inflamed, it's also very sensitive. And so sometimes it's very helpful to get the tendon out of the inflammation cycle. And I'm not a doctor, so please do not take my medical advice on this. But often what we'll tell people is that some low-level ibuprofen that you can get over the counter, so like Advil or ibuprofen generic, can be really helpful on that. And that you want to take at a low level and frequently. So often I'll ask people to do 200 milligrams, 3 times a day for over the course of 3 to 4 days. And often that can bring the irritation at that joint or irritation in that tendon down enough so that they can get effective movement again and heal the right way. There's a lot on that.
That was good though. So thanks, Ross. All right, our next question is from Dawn. So Dawn said, I was told we all have a set weight that our bodies want to be at. Nick, I'm gonna have you start on this because of your set point theory.
Yeah. Do you remember? Because didn't she say there was a place that told her this?
Yeah. Specifically, it was Optavia.
And they do. That's a weight loss place. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah,
so.
I believe it's an online weight loss place. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So it's not. I think that this could easily be used for some people as like a cop out. Whether that's an individual saying like, oh, no, my body wants to be at a certain body weight and so therefore I can't make a change, or by a coach or an organization if somebody's not getting results being like, well, technically there's, and it's not technical.
Trying to sugarcoat.
What she's talking about in this question is something that we call set point theory. And I want to underline the word theory here, okay? This is not proven, this is a theory. And honestly, set point theory is really ill-defined. But basically what she's saying and what this organization was saying to her is that your body has a predetermined weight or body fat level that it wants to stay at. And so as soon as you start to move outside of that, whether that's losing weight or gaining weight, your body will make hormonal changes to fight to get back into its home range. And this is based around the concept of homeostasis. We probably all kind of remember that word from 7th grade biology class, which basically means that the body wants to be the same all the time and it's going to always make adjustments to be there. That's true. However, I think it's important to know why this happens. And so do you care if I go into this hormonal stuff here?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay. All right. We're going to get a little technical here, so bear with me. I'm going to make it quick. So there's 2 main hormones at play when you talk about hunger and body fat loss. So we'll talk about it as body fat loss. So what the set point theory says is basically that let's say I was to start losing weight, that my body is going to uptick my hunger signals to try to drive me to eat more food. And it may even bring down my metabolism so that I burn less energy so that I can get back to my normal body fat. That does happen to a certain extent. For example, we do know that as your body breaks down fat, your hunger is going to increase. Anybody who's gone on a cut, this is extremely true. As you drop weight, your hunger just drives through the roof, and it's really something you have to fight with, and there's a really good hormonal reason for that. So when your body, your fat cells produce a hormone called leptin. And so the more fat that is being stored in your body, the more leptin is being produced. And leptin basically shuts down another hormone called ghrelin, and that's your hunger hormone. And so if your body fat is rising, your hunger decreases. Makes sense, right? Your body is basically saying, hey, you're putting on body fat, you don't have to go search for as much food. On the opposite side of that, if you start breaking down body fat, then leptin drops in the body and ghrelin increases. And ghrelin's that hunger hormone, so your hunger goes through the roof because your body's saying, hey, you're losing body fat. Your body just wants you to be safe, saying, hey, this isn't safe. We want those extra reserve stores. Go find some food. And so just me saying that, you may assume that just the lower body fat you get, the hungrier you would be all the time. But we don't see that, right? Somebody who loses 100 pounds is not 100 times hungrier when they lose the 100th pound than they were when they lose the first pound.
Right.
And I'm going to use some anecdotal evidence here and talk about I'm not going to use his last name, Chris M. from the gym, who went through a big cut with us and he lost a good 40 pounds. And then, he probably took about 6 months off and now he's doing another cut. And what he told us the other day was, I was surprised that this second time around, as I'm doing this cut, I'm actually less hungry than I was the first time around. And so your body does adjust to that weight loss over time. Maybe not immediately, you're going to be very hungry, but over time it does adjust. And so the way I want you guys to think about this is kind of like a thermostat. And so on a thermostat, you have a set point that you set the heat to, and when it gets above, the heat shuts off, and when it gets below, then the heat turns on, and your body's the same way. Now, after you've spent a decent amount of time at a lower body fat, your body will move that set point, and that will become your new norm. Of course, then if you push it farther, you're going to get hungry again, but it can reset. And so largely, I would say if somebody is telling you that you can't lose weight because of this, that's a bunch of hogwash.
Hogwash.
Yeah, hogwash.
Point blank period.
Point blank period. Well, there was one more thing on here I wanted to touch base on. I'm trying to remember what it was. Let's see here. Oh, the concept that your metabolism lowers as you diet and as you lose weight. Now, this is true. There's pretty strong evidence that over prolonged dieting, let's say like 12, 16 weeks, 20 weeks, the longer you go out, your body does slowly and minorly drop your metabolism. And we don't know, these are all theories, but the reasoning behind this is that your body is basically adapting to your new eating style. And so it doesn't want to run out of energy completely, and so it's going to slightly lower your metabolism. What you do to solve that is you take diet breaks, right? Maybe you go on an 8-week cut, and then after you're done, you go 4 weeks where you eat at maintenance, you allow that metabolism to heal. I hate that term, but let that metabolism heal, and then you can go on a cut again. And so it's not like there's some type of permanent thing happening in your body that's trying to keep you from losing weight.
For sure.
That's a deep one, but Dawn, that's a great question.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. All right, so thanks, Dawn. Now we got a question from Jeff Runs Wild. Is protein, or is there a better protein to consume? Now, this is a great question because I personally see on social media, I'm sure everyone else does too, of everyone saying that you need to be taking in whole food protein to be healthier. Now, first of all, before I go into that, there is a few different proteins that you can take in. So there is whey protein. This is a lot for like protein powders, whey protein, casein protein, and even collagen, and whey isolate. So how all of these fit is, in my mind, okay, that protein is protein. So it depends upon everyone's bodies, because if you were to take in whole foods, maybe for you, you might actually feel better if you're taking in whole food proteins, which is going to be like Greek yogurt, lean meat, beef, chicken, fish, whatever. And then if you were to take in more processed, we could say, proteins of protein bars, protein shakes. What else would fit into that category, I guess?
Oh, just any of the protein foods. But most of them are supplemented with whey protein or some type of pea protein if they're trying to be vegetarian
pea protein,
about
I
it.
forgot about pea protein. Right.
Yep.
So in reality, I would say that neither are better, but what I would say is like the importance is just getting in your protein. So, but it wouldn't hurt to experiment on yourself to see that, hey, I feel like I might be more bloated if I'm taking in more processed protein. Maybe you got to switch to a whey isolate, which is going to be the lactose taken out of that, right?
Yep. Yeah. Whey isolate is just regular whey protein that is derivative of cheese making. So whey protein is derived from milk, guys. So there's the same protein that you're getting in milk. You're also getting when you take the whey protein supplements. Mm-hmm. And the isolate just means that they've pulled the lactose out of it. And so people that are lactose intolerant or have, GI issues because of lactose, they're going to look for that isolate.
That isolate holds better in your, So, that's my take on it, that either experiment with one or the other or change out if you wanted to try the whey isolate or the pea protein or whatever your heart desires. But I would be the first to say that one's not better than the other, but you might say something different.
No, I'd agree with that. I think this goes back to, don't put too many restrictions on yourself. If you try to idealize your diet too much, that just increases your chance of failure. And so if you're already just struggling to get protein in, take the shakes. There's no evidence out there that there's a benefit for never taking whey protein and getting full food sources versus taking whey protein. Obviously there's plenty of people out there that are jacked, healthy, and having a great life that have been taking whey protein for at this point, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think that the people walking around really show that. Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just thinking, I would also add in that most of us in our lives, it's probably a little bit more convenient for us to grab that protein shake quicker. I mean, just naturally for most of us. I know for myself, I don't have a million times of the day or so much time in the day to be able to cook up breakfast, lunch, and dinner with all these whole foods. Like if I need to grab my protein, a quick protein shake, I feel good. I hit my protein and I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah, very simple. It's like for me to sit down and not even counting like the time it takes to make it, for me to just sit down and eat a steak versus how fast I can chug a protein shake and get in 40 grams, it's just not even close. One thing I would like to do, I think we have the time for it. I want to break down each of these real quick and just give like some advice on it. So we've got their whey protein. That's our standard normal protein. That's also what we consider a complete protein, which means it has all your essential amino acids. And that's just going to be your standard. That's most things that are out there that are like protein enhanced foods are going to have some type of whey protein in it. And like I said before, that's derived from milk. Casein is also derived from milk, and that's just a different type of protein that is in the standard cow's milk. And somebody who takes casein protein, I don't think it's as popular as it used to be. I don't hear about it much anymore. The only benefit to that is it digests slower in your system. So I think there were bodybuilders back in the day, and maybe today still, that preferred to take like a nice large casein protein shake prior to going to bed because it would keep them fuller overnight and deliver protein more slowly in their system. I mean, maybe there's a benefit if you're trying to combat hunger, but casein protein is more expensive, and so whey is going to be probably the better way to go for most people. The other one that we didn't really touch base on is collagen. That's extremely popular nowadays. Tons of women in our gym are on collagen. I think mostly for the proposed benefits to like hair, nails, skin. There's also some benefits that people claim about, you know, just your tissue pliability. If you taking in more collagen, are you able to like become more flexible and resist stiffness a little bit more? That's something that I think the research is still coming out on that. I don't think we can definitively say that, but you should try it and see if it's a benefit for you. But we had somebody ask us a question in the gym the other day about whether taking collagen, a lot of people put it in their coffee, I think, Vital Proteins collagen. Oh, you do? Oh, perfect. They want to know whether it counts towards their total protein amount. And somebody was making the argument, well, I heard that it's an incomplete protein, and so it shouldn't count towards my protein. Incomplete proteins still count towards your protein total. Like if you're trying to get 200 grams in a day, you should definitely count that collagen. You shouldn't be concerned that it's an incomplete, which just means that it's missing one of the key amino acids that our body survives off of, because all kinds of vegetarian foods are incomplete proteins, but we don't discount them just because they're missing an amino acid or two. And so if you're fretting about that, you shouldn't count it, take it. If it makes you feel better, great. If it doesn't, whatever.
Absolutely.
And then we already touched on whey isolate. You know, if you're lactose intolerant, go for that. Some people that are lactose intolerant still are irritated by it. With all this stuff, guys, try it out and see if it works for you.
Yeah, it never hurts to experiment with it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff Runs Wild. All right, next one.
This one, me? Okay. Jake McAdams, my buddy from the Mesa Fire Academy, firefighter in Mesa, Arizona. Love you, Jake. Miss you, buddy. He asked about fasting / strategic eating and about creatine, another super popular topic now.
Perfect.
So let's take these one by one. Fasting. Tracy, you ever fasted?
Nope.
Never?
No.
What's the long? You don't love going without eating,
No.
so it
Well,
makes total sense.
I'm a little biased. I don't really love intermittent fasting, but like, yeah, no, I refuse to. I'm the type of person that is first to say that like you need to have food in the morning, otherwise you feel like you don't function. Like, and I know I need to because usually I like to work out in the mornings, so I need to have something in me. But works for some people. I know plenty of people it works for, so I'm not hating on it. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Once again, different strokes for different folks, right? It's like
There you go.
you got to find what works for you, and intermittent fasting works.
Have you done it?
Incredible for some people. Yes, I almost accidentally do it most days.
Yeah, fair.
So if I'm left to my own accord and I was just at home for 2 weeks straight, I wouldn't eat until noon every day besides coffee. And so I prefer not to eat in the morning. I don't know why. Food just kind of messes with my stomach earlier in the morning. And I think I just like to get to work right away. So I don't like taking that time to eat a meal. I'm just different than you, you know?
Yeah.
I have trouble eating, you know, you have trouble not eating.
Right.
You know, and so, but intermittent fasting is an excellent diet strategy because remember, when we're trying to lose weight, we just care about your total calories coming down to the point where your body will break down fat for energy. And so if you don't eat half the day, well, then you can probably get in some really good solid meals in the last half of the day and really like your life as long as you can tolerate not eating, you know, in the first part of the day. And so if that's a strategy that works for you, excellent. My gripe is with the people that claim that intermittent fasting is some sort of health hack or that they're optimizing their hormones, or people will throw around the word autophagy, which is precancerous scheduled cell death. When we are
I've seen
in
that.
not drastically fasted, when we are in prolonged fasted states, more like closer to 72 hours, your body will start to seek out and kill off precancerous cells. That's a natural occurrence that's happening in everybody's body all the time, and that can be a benefit. However, if you're just doing a 12-hour fast every single day, you're not getting that benefit. My other gripe about that is that whole autophagy and catabolic breakdown of precancerous cells is also something that happens with prolonged caloric deficit. So if you
Yes,
are
I am.
cutting for 8 weeks, you're going to get those same benefits. So like with anything in the fitness industry that's a fad, people like to act like it's amazing. It's simply a really good diet strategy if it works for you and you like to lead your days that way.
And it's simply, I mean, putting you in a calorie deficit, right? Because
Yep.
you're just you have less of a window to take in food.
Yep, 100%. And I think that intermittent fasting is not dissimilar to another diet strategy that we tell people to use, talking to the point of strategic eating, which is calorie banking. So like, let's say Matresa and her boyfriend are gonna go out for like an anniversary dinner and she wants to like go ham on dinner and dessert. Well, she's probably gonna eat really light during the day, right?
Right.
So that you stay on your goals. And that's something that you can totally use. And I think that's a similar thing, but if you put a fancier name on it, like intermittent fasting, then everybody thinks it's fancy.
Yes.
But if we just say calorie banking, then everybody's like, oh, I already do that all the time.
And even with that too, I will say, I guess I do use this like ways to try to like curb your hunger if you're trying to wait till later, let's say on a
Yeah.
calorie banking or whatever. Like caffeine is a huge thing. Like I love coffee. I honestly could probably just drink coffee all day if I could and just have that.
Yeah.
But I also like to put like sugar in my coffee, so that makes a little bit of a difference. I'd say there that I'm still getting plenty of calories out of it, you know. But
Yeah. And
so
what
that curbs my hunger.
And while we won't push you guys to like towards excessive use of stimulants or anything like that, like if you are cutting and you are struggling with hunger, caffeine and nicotine are both stimulants that will reduce your hunger. And I think people do this naturally all the time. If you wake up and you start drinking coffee, you're just not hungry for a while. And so if you can use that to your advantage without it becoming a problem, then you should totally do so. You know, obviously if it gets out of control, we're not pushing for that. We're pushing for you to use it as an adult.
Yes, use wisely.
And then another strategic eating method that you could use is cycling calories. So you can have high days and low days. Some people find that to be mentally a little bit easier to attack instead of being in a deficit every single day. Maybe they have a higher calorie day and then they have a lower calorie day. And they know when they come to that day, they're like, I'm getting rewarded because I have higher calories today. And then the next day it's like, all right, I got high calories yesterday, so I'm going to be able to be a little bit more strict on myself and take a low calorie day today. As long as over the course of the week you are maintaining your normal deficit, that's totally fine. The one thing I would say is that if you are going to do high calorie days and you're strength training, you should take your high calorie days on the days that you train so that you not only have some fuel in the system when you go to train so you can perform well, but also so that you can get some extra protein in post-workout so that you can actually recover.
Now utilize those calories.
Yeah. All right, last one.
Oh, my bad. Did you get the strategy around?
That's actually going to be the next question, I think.
I guess we didn't talk about creatine.
Oh, we didn't. We got to get into creatine.
Can't forget about creatine.
Yeah. Go ahead. Start us off. Do you take creatine?
I do take creatine.
Awesome. How much do you
I took
take?
it because you talked me into it like a year ago. Well, you didn't talk me into it. You educated me on it.
Fair.
I think I take about like 10 grams a day now. I tried to up it. So I guess the usual is about 5 grams I think people take, right?
Yeah, I think that's the recommended dosage on most creatine supplements is 5 grams per day. There's definitely research out there now. If you're on Instagram at all right now, everybody's talking about creatine. Just like I talked about with intermittent fasting, these other things, and like ice baths were a year ago. If somebody's screaming that it's amazing, it's probably good, but it's probably not like a godsend. You know,
Yeah.
Creatine's been around for a very long time, and it's just now resurging in popularity. Because some more recent studies came out that said that it's good for brain health and all this stuff. And we're not going to put too much emphasis on one study that comes out, but there is some definite benefit for muscle growth. And so, like, what do you notice when you start taking creatine?
I would say that I feel like my muscles are for sure fuller. And I could say that honestly, and maybe it's mental, but I don't know. I can like push through workouts a little bit harder, I'd say at times too with creatine.
That makes total sense for what creatine is. And so, on a brief run, creatine is a transport molecule that exists inside your muscles. And so, when you flex your muscles, when you're using them for activity, your body is breaking down a compound called ATP. I promise I won't get too technical here, guys. But breaking down a compound called ATP. And that's what causes your muscle to be able to contract. And so when ATP runs low and you would normally be fatigued post or like in the middle of a set or right after a set, creatine is a shuttle that comes in and replenishes ATP. And so what it really allows you to do is if I were to do 3 sets of bicep curls and I wasn't on creatine, maybe I'm gonna do 30 pounds in each hand for 10 reps on my first set. And then I'm gonna do 30 pounds in each hand on my second set for 10 reps. And then I come to that third set and I'm toast and maybe I have to go down to 25 pounds or maybe I only can get 7 reps. Well, maybe when you're on creatine, because you're recovering better in between every single set, then I get to lift heavier on that third set and therefore you get stronger and bigger over time faster than if you weren't on it. And so it's definitely not a miracle supplement. You're not going to get bigger and stronger without doing the work on it. And so it's important that you know that you still have to go in and lift hard in order for creatine to give you any sort of advantage.
I would say too that I feel like creatine has been in the, I don't know, on social media, everything more is because it's trying to push a little bit more of like women should be taking creatine, because I think far too long women were nervous to take creatine. Just from things I've read is that people claim it makes you bloated or it makes you bulky. And like that's all just so not true. Like I understand where they hear the bloating from, because I mean you need to be taking in more water for sure when you're taking in creatine, but it like helps you look more plump, like makes your muscles look bigger and looks more full, I should say. And who doesn't want to look like that? So I think like I've liked taking creatine. I've definitely noticed a difference. I mean it's the most studied supplement, so if there's something you want to try, that'd be the first one I'd recommend out of anything.
Yeah, from a safety standpoint, I don't think anybody has concerns anymore. It's been studied for so long.
You
Now,
take it in anyways with like and meats and stuff.
oh yeah,
Like
steak
it's
has
not-
plenty of creatine in it,
Yeah.
and creatine naturally exists in your muscles. It's just you're getting
It's
more of
nothing
it.
foreign.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like to your point, what you were talking about people's concerns with water retention and bloating, I think it's important to point out that when you do take in creatine, because it lives inside the muscle, is promoting intramuscular water retention, which means that the water inside the muscle, the volume of water is increasing. So it's not putting on water weight like in your skin or around your midsection like you might think it would. That's what you were talking about that plumpy feeling. When I first start taking creatine and my muscles start holding on to more water, I simply feel like my muscles look more shapely and I'm digging it, you know? Which is excellent. And I think that also has a benefit potentially for recovery, because if your muscles are better hydrated, they're going to recover better, they're going to perform better, and just all the good things that come with that.
For sure.
It is important to remember you have to be taking in water like crazy when you're on creatine. There's definitely a risk of like creatine headaches. So if you're dehydrated and you're taking creatine, then I will get a massive headache from that. It's dehydration. My brain just doesn't have enough water then. And so continue to drink water like crazy and you'll actually feel it. Your muscles will feel full when you're really doing it well. And then the last added benefit to that is if your muscles are full of water and you go in and let's say you do some biceps training, you're going to get a way better pump. And we know that the pump is a signal that the muscle needs to grow. And so if you get pumps every single workout and they are better on creatine, then you're definitely in the right zone.
Absolutely. To note on that too is it's creatine monohydrate is what you're going to want to look for if that's what you're interested in. But so great question, Jake. Loved it. All right, last one, Nick.
All right.
The honors.
Marla Ellen Watermelon, sick name. When should I be eating, hydrating for my workout, and taking pre-workout?
This is a good question.
Yeah, this is a really good question. So let's just start with when you should be eating. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you're gonna have a workout at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., even 5 a.m., whatever. This is my biggest gripe with our members in the gym and my biggest gripe with everybody who trains early is please eat before you work out. The only thing that you're doing by not eating is decreasing your performance. And we need to be able to perform well in order to increase muscle mass and strength. What we recommend typically is just to get in some really fast digesting carbohydrates. And so people at our gym like to joke that I'm pushing them to eat donuts all the time. I'm not necessarily, but that is a good option if it fits into your calories. That's totally fine. But my recommendation is more so like, some type of carbohydrate heavy granola bar. I'm a big fan of those mini Gatorades that they sell.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're really easy on your stomach. Some people don't like to eat that first thing in the morning or right before a workout, but if you can get somewhere in the range of 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates in your system 30 minutes prior to training, I promise you, you will notice a massive difference in your performance. Because if you go into a workout and you do not have fuel in your system, then as soon as your body starts to use up the carbohydrates that are already stored in your muscle, it's gonna try to pull more in from your bloodstream. And if those levels are already low, like we know they are when we wake up, that's when people start to get dizzy. It's when they get foggy headed and you're starting to play with fire there.
Yep.
And you're not gonna pass out, or most of us aren't, so you're just gonna decrease your performance.
For sure. I guess my favorite little pre-workout is like either a peanut butter toast or I like rice cakes a lot. So putting a little bit of peanut butter on that. Yeah. Carbs for sure.
What about after workout?
After workout, well, protein, of course. We always talk about protein. I would say timing-wise, I guess I don't focus on the timing as much myself, but do you focus on timing more than?
The earlier I can get it in, the better. That's back to that time issue. If I wait 5 hours to get in protein, then that's 5 hours my body hasn't started the recovery process. So if I can get it in 1 hour, that'd be best.
Quicker you recover, better you can perform.
Yep, exactly. Once again, 20 to 30 grams on both this. 20 to 30 grams of protein plus 20, 30 grams of carbohydrates after your workout, ideally within an hour, but the sooner you can get it in, the better. That's going to be beneficial. If you just hit a really hard kind of cardiovascular workout where you're really fatigued and you kind of have that foggy headedness that we often feel, then the first thing your body needs is carbohydrates, because that's just a signal that your brain is kind of starved of glucose. And so you want to get some carbs in. Sure, you can get your protein in, but you might not fade that foggy feeling unless you actually get some carbs in.
Perfect. Hydrating for a workout. That's kind of I don't know. What would you say on that? I am always
Constant
drinking water,
hydration.
so it's hard for me to say.
Yeah, constant hydration is really the key there, because let's say you were to wake up early in the morning for a workout, you're not, any water that you're chugging like in the first couple hours of the day likely isn't going to be actually like integrated into your system and in your muscles by the time that you work out. So yes, it's still good that you drank the water, but there's not going to be an immediate benefit to your workout. And so I often think about it, if I'm going to work out in the morning, I really want to be well hydrated before I go to bed to set myself up for success for the next day. And so if I think about it like that, and I wake up in the morning and my pee might be like light yellow and I know that I only need like a little bit of water to really get my levels up, then I know I'm in a good zone.
I think even you could fight that adding in some electrolytes or some sort of too could make a difference.
Yeah, it's like, well, why is Gatorade such a great hydration supplement? It's because it has electrolytes in it, your salts and your potassiums and all those things that help with muscle function, but it also has carbohydrates in it. And people, I think, don't understand that carbohydrates help drive water into the muscle. And so there is a benefit to hydrating with some of those drinks that are calorically enhanced, like juices and Gatorade, as long as it fits into your calories for the day.
Sure. See, so carbs and salt are not bad for you, okay? They're good for you.
What about pre-workout? You take pre-workout?
I just started to, but I wouldn't even count it as much of pre-workout. It's more of a pump work. Because there's no caffeine or anything in it. I feel like most people take pre-workout because of the caffeine, and I don't need that. So I just take it's pump. It's like PE Science pump pre-workout, right? Is that what it's called? And
it's like a nitrogen supplement, so that it opens up your blood vessels so that the blood flow to your muscles is enhanced. It does work.
Yeah, it does
I get
give
great
me a nice
pumps
pump.
on it.
But I mean, it's not. I mix it with my creatine personally, just so that it helps me get in my creatine. But I've never taken like caffeinated pre-workout. I did once and I got too itchy, so it freaked me out.
Yeah, and that itchiness, that's the beta-alanine in it.
Yeah.
And so if you have a really high beta-alanine, or if you're sensitive to it and you take those, sometimes that can deter from what you're really going for. And frankly, most pre-workouts, most pre-workouts don't have enough beta-alanine in it to really get the physical benefits. They just put it in there because guess what? If you start itching your face, then you believe that what you took worked.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Oh,
the
for
same
sure.
reason they put a little bit of soap into toothpaste. If it suds up, it's got to be doing a better job than if it was just flat.
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes that's just them as a supplement company convincing you that something is working in your system.
I would say for pre-workout with that, like taking that 30 minutes before. That's usually what works best for me. That's probably when it really kicks in for you if you are taking the caffeinated or if you take the pump like I do. Even though too, I would argue like pre-workout can also be, I mean, your pre-workout snack. That's a lot of times that gives you that energy that you're looking for as well. So.
And the 30 minutes is the important time window because whether it's the breakdown of carbohydrates into glucose to get in your bloodstream, or it's the caffeine getting into your stomach and through into your bloodstream, it takes about 30 minutes for that breakdown to occur and for it actually to be utilized by your body.
Right.
And so sure that you can take it 15 minutes before, and that stuff will kick in a little bit later in the workout, but you definitely don't want to be taking all that stuff an hour before.
No, otherwise you'll be you're itching your face off, right? 30 minutes earlier than your workout. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that is all of our questions. So if you liked this, please don't be afraid to send in more questions. We would love to do more Q&As. This was fun.
Yeah. How can they send you questions?
You can send me questions on Instagram. You can find me at MatracaFit, MatracaFit.
And I am at Nick, N-I-C-K, _Byom, B-Y-O-M on Instagram. You can find our home Strength Academy page for our gym at Strength Academy RF on Instagram. Anywhere else you find us, YouTube, TikTok, those are going to be at Strength Academy 101. What else am I missing?
Well, I would even just say there, if you're watching this on YouTube, you could totally leave comments on there too of questions.
Yeah,
So,
and please,
don't be
guys,
afraid.
if you can hit the subscribe button, follow button on anything that you're following us on, that's excellent feedback for us, and it'll guarantee that you continue to get great information. So, that's all she
See you
wrote.
guys next week.
Peace out.